Hi, welcome to Draw Tip Tuesday. I'm Koosje Koenen, and for many years now I have been sharing what I learn from my sketchbook practice here on YouTube. And today, of course, again, I want to share something I learned. A while ago I took a workshop from Santi Sallés, and he made this beautiful book about drawing and painting greens. And part of the workshop was about painting greens. So today I would love to share with you the things that I've learned, the aha moments that I had. The colors that Santi uses in his palette are not the same as the colors that I have in my palette. So what I am really curious about is if the colors that I already have and that I'm really happy with and that I know how to mix, if I can actually use my own colors to mix the colors that he uses in his palette, so I don't have to go buy all his colors because of the things that I've learned from him. I really want to adapt the things that I've learned from him into my own style, get it into my own hands, have control over it, instead of one-on-one doing the things that he does. And I think that is a really important part of learning and of your sketchbook habit and your sketchbook practice, that if you learn from people, you can mimic and you can replicate what they do, but then moving it into your own style and adapting it in a way that fits you, that's the most exciting part. Okay, enough talk, let's mix greens. This is the book from Santi Sallés, and it is all about green. I can recommend it, even if you don't speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish either, but just looking at the pictures, you will learn a lot from it, and Google Translate is also an answer. Okay, so I have these samples that I got from Santi when I took his workshop, and I am curious to see whether or not I actually need to buy all these colors, or that I maybe can mix them myself with the palette that I already have. And I think I can. We'll see. So these are the colors that he uses. I've got them here, and I'm not going to reveal any secrets from Santi. You should just buy his book if you want to learn more about his way of drawing and painting greens. All right, so I've got this. And I have my other palette, my own palette. The samples that I got from Santi are from the brand Sennelier, and my watercolors are actually Daniel Smith. Okay, so let's see. Maybe I should show you just a few things that Santi does with his colors so that you understand why he chooses these. So this is the brown green, and he uses this often as a base of his green, and then he lets it dry and he puts a different color on top, like olive green, which is a beautiful color in itself. I think these two colors he uses straight from the tube and he mixes them. Then he has this very bright green light. It looks really artificial. So what he does with this, he mixes it. And then if you mix it with, for example, olive green, you get a beautiful color for example, for grass. And I think you can also use this green color with the brown green, and you get another very bright color. Then the hooker's green, that is also a bit of a artificial color, and I think he mixes that also with the olive green. But what he also does, he mixes it with this green. These are all really great to mix together. And then he might also mix hooker's green with the burnt umber for more of a bluish, brownish gray. And then he also has a viridian green. I never really understood why you would have viridian green in your palette, but, and this is my aha moment, when you mix it with a burnt umber, you can get fantastic khaki colors and a sort of a bluish cool color of a green. And of course, if you add more, I have added a lot of water now, so these colors are a little bit watery, but I love the mix that already happens here. So yes, that is why Santi uses these colors. Let's see if I can replicate these colors. So we've got the brown green, the green light, the olive green, the hooker's green, and we've got Viridian. The only one that I have in my palette from a different brand is hooker's green. And my hooker's green is a little bit different, but on camera you actually can't really see that. Viridian, I don't have it. So let's see if I can perhaps mix it by using my hooker's green, because it feels very close to that, because it's a bit artificial. And then I am adding some cerulean blue to see if I can actually mix something that comes close to Viridian. And I think that's actually not so bad. I mean, the Viridian is a lot brighter, so I do think that it might be interesting to have that in my palette, but I can come really, really close. Let's see if I can make the olive green. So I have sap green, which to me feels quite natural already. Sometimes I use it straight from the pan, but maybe if I use a little bit of sienna, I think I can really get close to that olive color. And to me this is really exciting, because I don't need to buy a whole bunch of new colors if I want to replicate or mimic Santi's style. I just want to see if I can do it with my own palette, and actually I can. This green light from Santi Sallés is very bright, and it's a little bit more opaque, and I know that my Hansa yellow is quite opaque too, and again it feels a bit artificial. So I start with hooker's green, which feels like the most artificial in my palette, and then I will add yellow. And I'm very, very close to that color. So again, yes, I can. And then for the brown green, I can use my quinacridone gold for it, because it's kind of a bright color. I start with sap green, and we'll see. I'm already there. That's it. Okay, so if you see an artist's palette, maybe you should start by looking at your own palette and see if you can mix the colors that you see in their palette before buying all the watercolors, because those watercolors are expensive and you don't even know if you like using them. I don't know if I would want to use all of these colors all the time in my palette. Maybe I'll keep this little palette for a while until I've used it all up. And then if I really fall in love with one of the colors, then I might buy a tube. But first, I always want to know if I can do whatever I like with my own palette, because there's a lot of colors in my palette and I know my palette. I know which color goes where. I know it very well, and if I don't need to change it, I'm pretty happy. Let's have a little bit of fun with these colors and mix some more greens, not with these but with these, because some of the things that I like when I mix green. Let's use hooker's green, and let's see what happens if I use a little bit of quinacridone rose. That's an exciting color too. If you are in nature, green is never ever really as green as your green in the tube. So look at these beautiful colors happening. And of course, if you add more red or more green, everything changes again. And I think it's important to know what happens, to know your colors. See what a beautiful brownish color this gives. And what if I add a little bit of blue there? Then I get a beautiful greenish kind of gray maybe. I can do the same with my sap green. Gives a completely different vibe because sap green is brighter. Do it again with the 3 reds that I have. Look at that. I think that's really beautiful. It feels lush and summery. That's a bit too red. I like that. Usually I mix on my palette. It's a little bit easier to control. Also, speaking of mixing greens, what if you don't have any green? Well, we all know that you mix green by using blue and yellow. And of course there's many blues and there's many yellows. So look at that. I'm mixing cerulean blue with new Gamboge. And I'm quite excited about what's happening there. Possibilities are quite endless if you dare to experiment. And of course, colors can granulate as well, so there's differences too. And then of course you can layer stuff. So I really think that it is quite endless the way you can mix your colors and keep on mixing, and it never needs to be the same color. So maybe I want to add more yellow to this one. What happens then? Maybe the other yellow too. It's quite bright. I like that. This could be really great for grass, but what happens if I add a little bit of red? That's a nice warm green. So get to know your palette. I think that is the most important thing. And if your palette doesn't have colors that you really would love to, if you cannot mix the colors that you miss, then you buy a tube or a pan. Otherwise, you can get a long way with the colors that you already have. I hope this is helpful. It's so exciting how many different kinds of greens you can mix with your own palette. So I really hope that you will try with the palette that you have, and then you will get to know your palette really well. You will understand more about the palette and about the colors and about their saturation, their opaqueness or transparency, and then you can use that to your benefit. People often say that greens are the hardest to mix and that it's really hard to capture, but I think that as long as you are happy to experiment and feel a little bit confident about the basic colors that you have, you can get a long way. Mix some greens, go outside and paint a tree. Let's do that. Oh, and I've been talking about Santi's book, but my book is almost ready for you to buy. I would love it if you want to buy it. I think you will like it. So there's a link below the video in case you haven't signed up for the email list I created especially for this book, so that when there's news, you get it first. Good. I will see you next week. Bye.